very important to get the energy outlook of, obviously we all know that much of the country's earnings is pegged in that particular sector, a very integral part of our country's development for many years. To get that energy perspective, as always, we call on Dr. Dax Driver, the CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. I always enjoy conversations with Dr. Driver, and he joins me on the Zoom line to give us the budget outlook and give some insight for 2025 and beyond. Dr. Driver, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me ask you, because I'm watching a report coming out of the IMF, and this was as recent as June 2024, where they are suggesting that climate change and the global green energy transition will bring TNT's economy, move it from, well, at least towards renewables from hydrocarbons. What's your take on that particular development, and how will that IMF finding impact the budget?
Well, I think that obviously is a long-term trend towards decarbonization of the industry of energy production. It's a global imperative because of climate change. Everyone has commitments in that area. So we are seeing the world moving its investments towards renewable energy, to energy efficiency, and to decarbonizing what the jargon is the hard to abate sectors. That those are things which are more difficult to remove CO2 from those sectors, things like the petrochemical sector. So that is a long-term trend, which obviously in Trinidad and Tobago we have to take very seriously, and we have to base our assumptions and our outlooks on the fact that that change is happening. It doesn't mean it's happening this year. It's happening over many years, but we have to plan towards that. So our budgets need to take that imperative around what's happening with climate change globally very much into account. And in fact, what our recommendations to the government are a lot of them are around that issue. Those are the long-term issues which the country needs to think about. But there are also short-term things we need to do immediately as well.
Understood. Now, the IMF also suggests that our energy sector is at a crossroad. And when we look even at the global geopolitics of the day, we are at a crossroad. We're talking here specifically the US election, literally weeks away. How do you, or at least anticipate, whoever's at the helm, whichever ways it goes, we have no idea at this point in time, but how will their election and obviously their foreign policy impact our energy sector here in the region, especially with their very interesting relationship with our neighbors, Venezuela? What you're hearing within the energy space concerning that geopolitical development?
Well, there's always geopolitical risk, and those things will impact the energy sector. It impacts pricing. When you have conflicts, prices typically go up, which we saw that in 2022 with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But also geopolitical tensions can, also affect things negatively for particular locations, obviously. There's a lot of importance to Trinidad and Tobago with the relationship with Venezuela, because of this idea about us importing natural gas from Venezuela to Trinidad to process here into petrochemicals and LNG and sell those to the international market. We don't know how the geopolitics of that will play out. We can just play the hand which is given to us at any particular time. I don't want to really speculate how a change in administration in the US would impact that. It's very difficult to know. There's so many factors which will go into making decisions around that. What I would say is that from the point of view of Venezuela, whoever is in power in Venezuela, that the exporting natural gas to Trinidad just makes very good economic sense to them. So I think that economic drive to export natural gas to Trinidad would exist whoever is in power in Venezuela. I think that is important to us to note. Yeah. And also the world, particularly the European Union, is looking to import natural gas from secure suppliers And Trinidad and Tobago is ranked as one of the very secure suppliers of natural gas to markets like the EU. So that gives us the ability to monetize that natural gas to sell to international markets. And so there's also that desire. And the geopolitics of that is that Europe is obviously moving away from importing Russian natural gas. So they're looking to LNG.
Well, let me ask you.
Like Trinidad and Tobago.
Let me ask Dr. Driver, because I'm asking based on obviously what we're seeing via the news cycle. So much of our eggs seem to be placed in that Venezuelan basket with the deals that are being brokered for future development, future engagement in the energy sector. Is there a plan B? Is there, or at least right now, other markets, other options to ensure that our energy sector remains vibrant so that when the budget is read on Monday, whatever is allocated to energy, we can see results down the road?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of focus on Venezuela in the news because it's sort of a newsworthy story, and people in the media like to discuss that, the whole issue with importing natural gas from Venezuela. But the bigger part of the story is that there's a lot going on inside Trinidad, in our territorial waters, to increase gas production from within Trinidad and Tobago. And the focus of our recommendations to the government for this national budget are focused on that, about getting the investment into upstream production in Trinidad and Tobago. There are some major projects which are in the offing, being developed. The Manatee field is the big one which Shell has taken an investment decision into. That is going to help increase Trinidad and Tobago's natural gas production in 2 years' time. It doesn't happen straight away. It takes a while to these multi-billion-dollar investments, US dollar investments, and they take a while to implement. So we are seeing the things which should lead to increased natural gas production within Trinidad and Tobago, in the next couple of years. There is one very large potential project within Trinidad and Tobago from deep water, the Calypso project. That is being worked through between the government and the investors, hopefully getting us towards an investment decision for that field as well. Yeah. There is exploration activity going on in the deep water in Trinidad and Tobago. So these are all things which are taking place, and that has to be that big focus on increasing natural gas production, getting the investment dollars in upstream Trinidad. I'd also say in oil as well. There's still opportunities in oil. I think what's really important just with the oil, and I've been sort of saying this for a good few years now, is that the electrification of transport, which is going ahead very quickly around the world, particularly in places like China, the world's biggest market for cars. They're now selling more electric vehicles than they are diesel and gasoline vehicles. So that is changing that'll change long-term the economics of the oil industry. That's not a cyclical thing with geopolitics. That's a long-term change. So there is this potential at some stage in the future. We're not sure when it's going to come. There's all different projections. But demand for oil begins to fall as transport becomes increasingly electrified. Yeah. And then that puts a long-term, and it changes from year to year, and events will impact it, but a long-term trend around decreasing demand for oil. So we should get the oil we have out of the ground as quickly as we possibly can, supply it to the market. So that's also important.
Well, Dr. Driver, I don't know if you are seeing, because we all use the nation's roads. I'm actually seeing even that trend slowly but surely taking shape in Trinidad, where people are going towards electric. But I know we'll expand on that whenever we touch base again. Let's crunch the numbers. Again, we're looking at the budget. It's going to be read on Monday. And again, just to get some more of your expectations via the sector. So the central bank would have put out budgeted energy revenue from 2023 to 2024, TT 22.5 billion, 22 to 23, TT 27.4 billion, and from 2021 to 2022, TT 29.4 billion. What are the numbers saying to you, Dr. Driver?
I don't have a line of sight onto those revenue numbers. Those are numbers which I, like everybody else, will be waiting to see when they come out, when they're published. So those are not things which I can give a view on. What I can say is that pricing, energy sector, the commodity pricing, has been down, particularly for oil. What we're seeing for natural gas is interesting because people typically look at the US natural gas price as being the price which is relevant for Trinidad and Tobago, but it's actually not. since we made the changes with the restructuring of Atlantic. And what we need to look at to give us an indication of our LNG export pricing, which is the biggest part of our natural gas goes into LNG, is the European and the Asian pricing, which have been much more robust than the US pricing. But speculating on what it will be is not something which I can really do. We just have to take the best estimates we can.
Well, actually, interesting you said that, because I was actually going to ask you if you could probably give us a price point that we could peg the budget at, because I know crude is coming in now at about 71. What you think, or at least a guesstimate, would be a good price point for us to be strong going in?
Yeah. It's not really my role to estimate, on pricing. I think what the government does is it takes what the projections are from the international agencies, and it bases the budget pricing on that. But you have to be ready to adjust as well. It can be, we can underestimate or we can overestimate.
Yeah.
I think the important issue for the country is that there has to be a big focus on diversifying our economy, so we're not just always reliant upon oil and gas industry revenue.
Yeah. Let me ask, as we wrap things up, in a nutshell, what rating would you give at least our sector right now, if we were to do a report card, as it were, as of current day, this moment, 2024, moving into this budget? Are we in a good place?
We've been through a very challenging period in the energy industry in the country for many years now. Obviously, we had this period of very high pricing after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and what that meant for global commodity prices. We are in a position now where we are seeing a lot of activity happening upstream. So there's a lot of things happening to increase our oil and gas production. So I'd say that is very positive. There's some additional changes which we're looking for in this budget, just incrementally making that better, to make just the investments into upstream even more attractive. So we are seeing things happening there. The petrochemical industry, import leases, has gone through, it's been a difficult time with reduced gas production, but things are in place. People are operating. We had a lot of maintenance projects implemented earlier this year. So the industry is continuing to function well. We continue to put a big emphasis on safety. It's important that we keep that very, very strong focus on safety. We're seeing a lot of opportunities coming up for the service industry in areas like asset integrity, maintaining the aging infrastructure we have. We've seen a couple of projects like that in the last couple of years, of pipelines being replaced, for example. So those are things which keeps the industry going. Obviously, within the region, we've had this massive growth in Guyana, and Suriname is poised for something very similar as well. So that has been also good for some of our service companies have been able to operate there in Guyana and Suriname. So that's sort of, I think, a snapshot of where the industry is. The big focus now, I think, is around decarbonization, the things we can do to decarbonize our production. It's great seeing the first big renewable energy project, the solar project, under construction in Brecon Castle. That's a really positive step, but we need the next one of the same sort of thing to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Driver, as always, we enjoy your candor. Thanks so much for the perspective, breaking it down for us in a way we can understand. And when we touch base again in the probably weeks or months ahead, I would love us to probably do a deeper dive into the EV phenomenon, what we're seeing here at home and globally, because I've recognized a couple of brands are coming in, and these electric cars are flying off the shelf, Dr. Driver. Interesting times we find ourselves in.
Yep. Okay. Yes.
All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Dr. Driver there, touching base with us, giving the budget perspective. And let's listen up and tune in next Monday. I'm sure he'll be back to give us the post-budget analysis. So we look forward. Up next, Caribbean Connections. And this time around, we're going to give that sense of fashion and a unique product between a mother and daughter team that is taking the region by storm. A very interesting conversation ahead via our Caribbean Connections. Let's tell you about some island-shaped bags. Yes, you heard it, island-shaped bags. Full details after the break.